So we're going to get started. So firstly, I'd like to introduce Simon Gray of Gray and Gustafson. He has been in the branding and rebranding industry for many years, decades, starting at Gap, and he is the most knowledgeable person I know in this industry. They are based in New York City, and they have worked with many of the largest brands in that were all household names. And so I've worked with them on many different projects that have to do with performance sport design or a brand having to do with athletics. So I will let Simon introduce himself, and we're going to ask him a few questions, and then we'll I have some interesting things to talk about with him about creating an emotional connection to a brand and primarily the brand DNA.
So my name is Simon Gray. Thank you for having me, Heather. Happy to contribute in any way that I can. We have a history of working with companies, Fortune 500 companies, startups, medium-sized companies, and really a path forward for a business that allows the business to prosper and scale and build a successful meaningful enterprise. So over the years, we have worked with many different companies, from a Harley Davidson, as you know, to private brands with department stores, to startups. And right now, I'm proud to say that after 32 years or 33 years, we are working on very progressive, new, emerging ideas and brands that combine the digital space with a physical space. But the thing that interests me the most is exactly what you raised as an emotional connection to a consumer. And it's increasingly a difficult time for larger companies and larger brands to do that, because marketing and positioning of brands and the speak of brands has shifted tremendously, as the whole idea of what a brand represents has shifted. Brands and marketing in the past have been seducing people to buy stuff they don't need. Conspicuous consumption has been the way to really build a business on products and a world that's less conscious. And we're moving into a time now where people are brands. And good brands are meaningful. They're meaningful in that they provide guidance, they provide trust, and trust is the number one issue in today's world. We're living in very paradoxical times where small is the new big, but big is getting bigger. And no one really knows how to speak the truth. And truth is also murky waters. So in the world of marketing, it's always us and them. And now, ever since the internet, and it's only been 15 years or so, that people are speaking to each other. So there is no longer the control that has been from the companies and brands on the people. So we are seeing the times where individuals care more about where products come from, what they represent, how they function, what the utility is, how lives are being enhanced. So in today's world, the size is less important. Being famous is less important, because the exposure of brands and ideas now has a platform which is digital on many different fronts: social, websites, new marketplaces arising, new era of what how products help you in your life. So how to be connecting to individuals is a factor of being honest and being authentic and actually having something to sell that you are passionate about. So it begins with the intent. And once there is a commitment to a vision or a path where you believe, meaning whoever is creating the brand or positioning a brand, then everything unfolds from there. And that's not an easy job to do, because you have to have a product that actually delivers to a life, that to a need, solving a problem, or if it doesn't solve a problem, represents something that a consumer, an individual out there, is willing to invest in because they are proud to be participating in that. So that would be an opener, I guess. Much more can be said about that. But it's very, very different times we live in now. I've never seen the transformation of a market in my 35 years of experience, where a cookie cutter approach, especially in apparel, which is where the beginnings have been for us, where it used to be cool and relevant to be head to toe representing a particular look that a brand is advocating. So most brands would say, well, if you buy into my look, my point of view, you'll be cool, sexy, and relevant. Well, that's sort of not the way it works. Now people are more eclectic, more independent, more individualistic, and I would say that alternative is today's mainstream. Mainstream is almost kind of like, no one really even knows what that is anymore. So representing yourself, if a brand can help to guide you to represent yourself in the best way, best version of yourself, so that you can feel comfortable in your own skin and exhibit yourself for who you really are, that's what's important. So we're living in a time now where things are being judged differently in terms of what is relevant and what is not.
Thank you. I love the fact that you pointed out that in previous the individual supported the brand, or the brand became part of their expression, and now we use the brand to support our own expression. So that major pivot into, you're not going to be a designer and sell you as the brand. Your brand is supporting them in their brand. And I think that is in designing and creating new product, a product line, that you have to understand that it's not your ego and your persona, it's no longer the designer driven brand. So designers need to be humble and take a step back and understand that they're supporting the individual brand of their consumer. And I think that's just a huge thing, mind shift, because as designers, we've been trained to think that we're so cool and unique and everyone's going to want to buy into our coolness. So thank you. I think that's a really relevant point for the students, because they're in the beginning of designing, they're working on the branding and the storytelling of they're either creating their own performance sport brand, they're either designing for specific athletes such as Coco Gauff or whoever they choose, and the other ones are just saying, like we used to do, like New Balance or Foot Locker, and we're wrapping ourselves into the world of that brand and creating a line that adheres to the brand DNA but is new and will pivot their sort of stagnating business into something new and fresh. So they have these three choices. But I want to ask about making a connection to the brand DNA. Like, how do you at G&D establish the emotional connection to a brand through your visual design and your storytelling? What 3 or 4 things do you generally start with?
So it's a good question. Well, it starts first always with your ability to observe and not have premeditated notions that are based on information that you might have read or you might have been educated on, but staying neutral. And in our world, our methodology is what I would love to motivate really everyone to embrace, because the methodology allows you to do two things. It allows you to stay fearless and curate considerations. We're in a world where everything is at our fingertips. So in our business, when we launched the business, we launched it with a process that was driven by really understanding and being inspired by the marketplace. And when I say the marketplace, it's really understanding first and foremost the socio-economic environment around us, people's sentiment, the culture at large, different industries, not just the industry that you may be working in, because everything is connected and everything is integrated. People are spending money and relating to each other in such a way that allows them to spend their time, energy, and money, all the currency that they have, and they divide up that time. So looking at variety of different industries, looking at various different things that are going on culturally, gives you the ability to stand back and see what's going on. So in our methodology and process, we call discovery and exploration as the first most important thing on taking a peek, as if you were an alien looking at the world at large and seeing what's popping up. Now, what's great about that is you begin to see emerging things as you look through the libraries that are available digitally. We used to look at magazines way back when. Now you can do that. You can look at digitally. So information, both visual as well as qualitative as well as quantitative, is out there. So I'm a big believer, we are a big believer in posting everything physically, even digital considerations. So when you start opening up the doorways, the windows to the world, and you are a good observer and you're able to see things at large and have a panoramic perspective, you begin to see connections between different areas. And when you see those connections, for us that leads to is what we call position. Now, positioning is important because you want to stand for something in alignment with what the opportunity is in the market, also alignment with what you're able to execute, and what will last through time, and what connects to the DNA of the situation. So it's a very good idea to do this discovery, because you begin to get out of your own head and then see it and then curate it and remove what, after 3 days, what you were excited about the first day, you may not be as excited the second or third day, and you are relieved when you're not. In most companies in the past, when you got excited about something and 3 days later you were not, you would double down and get defensive and support that because you didn't want to be wrong. So removing all the things, and what's left are the things that have lasted. So for a designer, for a creator, 3 days may be a lifetime. for what a kind of company does. So even though you're working against deadlines and all of that, it's good to step back, relax, look at the world at large, and see how that influences your situation in positioning how the brand is positioned. So even though that's not the role for most designers, it is very important to understand how the brand is positioned against competition, what it stands for, and what is its unique position and its purpose that goes beyond the transaction, goes beyond, so that it stands for something that is meaningful. After that, once that's clear in our process, in that discovery, you'll gain insights into the creativity of the design direction, see how people are behaving, see commonalities, see the differences, and you begin to see opportunities, and you become inspired. You become inspired with truthful things that are being revealed to you by seeing at large what's going on. And this is like scrapbooking the world. And that gives you then the power to develop, to position the brand, or come up with a new name if that's the objective, or whatever the objective is. Having a peek into the world at large is very, very important. And there's a science to that, but I'm not going to go into that. What follows that is what I would call a platform. Brand platform. A platform that allows you to really identify what used to be called lifestyle. Now I would say is the way we live, what the brand stands for and the way it shows up, what it speaks like, what is its personality, what is the emotion that's really honest and authentic, without designing anything yet, other than the brand feeling and expression and emotion. And what follows that, once you have that, what follows that is all the areas that make up every company: product, communication, environments, digital, physical, packaging, marketing, all the things that I would call ambassadors of the brand, that speak about the actual reason for existence of a brand. So finding in the first, so you could call that three main phases. And while the designers may not operate in all those three phases, they should be informed in the way the brand is being positioned, what it stands for, what is the meaningful aspect of it, what is the platform. Because when you have that really clear, it allows you to do a better job in designing a product, in communicating about the product. Because all in all, you want to have an authentic expression, not look to communicate generic communication. You want to speak differently. You want to speak as if you were speaking to someone, not marketing talk that's sort of been regurgitated. So finding that soul and spirit to be moved by. Now, in order to do all this, whether it's designing a product or an environment, I really recommend meditation on an individual level, because that allows you to remove all the noise that goes on in your head, all the insecurities, all the thoughts that keep arising as you live a day, and puts you in a mode of just being a good observer and seeing things for what they are and not be preoccupied. So in design, that's very important. Now, there's two worlds that I just want to add. One world is the world of working for companies, working for brands, whether they are creating new brands, whether they are retailers doing private brands, whether it's a manufacturing brand that sells to retailers, whether it's, no matter what it is, you then are subject to that brand and company's mission. So as a designer, get clear on what the mission is, what the purpose is, all the areas, so that you can really feel authentic in embracing that, and then contribute in your area of expertise, which is designing a product that aligns with that vision, that purpose, that strategy. But if you're lucky enough to be an artist and want to do something that is all about breaking ground and it's your own thing, and these days there is more and more ability to launch one item into a brand. You do not have to have collection of large amounts of products anymore. You don't have to have patterns. This lines up with this lines up. You can have an idea, a single product, and you really believe in it. Fabrics are now different. They keep you cool in the summer and warm in the winter. New ideas for innovations. So this gives a designer the opportunity to sell a product, create a brand. And when you do that, you then can be an artist, a business person, a designer, and do your thing without being guided by a predetermined DNA of a brand or a company. So that is a new emerging space of opportunity because of all the ways you can expose yourself in today's digital world. So much more can be said about all of that. So having a process that takes you from the market to your own company, your own brand, see how it relates to a market opportunity, and identify all the doorways, whether it's inspiration from culture, inspiration from products, what new industries are evolving, and how things are out there. And I guarantee you, I often say, even today, that if you have 100 magazines and you stack them up and you have a question, what shall I do in alignment with this company or a brand? If you look through those 100 magazines, you will find things that inspire you, that you can integrate, post, and there will be an answer. So it doesn't come from something that's yesterday. It comes from being in the moment, doing the work, being a good observer, and having a process that takes you from being inspired by the marketplace, understand that things have to work and be executed, having a good platform, deciding what it is that you stand for, how it looks and feels and is experienced, and then with that direction you can design anything, because it all that previous stuff is the homing device that it allows you to have direction. And things now are engineered as much as they are designed. Science is impacting apparel business like never before. Things are bonded, not sewn oftentimes. So it's a transformative marketplace. And one thing I want to add is there is no professional knowledge. It is really what you discover and innovate upon. There is very little that is not going to change 6 months from now. Things are evolving rapidly, so it's really important to find that inner voice where you feel comfortable in a changing world, where you're connecting to a market that's looking for originality, authenticity. So I'm really speaking out of two sides of my mouth. When you work with a company, they have a lot of this stuff predetermined, but often they don't. So you can bring that to the table, sort of the vision first, platform, purpose. And if they don't have them, get into that conversation so that the product you're designing is really relevant. And then the other thing, and I'll kind of bring things down a little bit, key items versus collections. Collections are made up of things coming from different brands. So a brand should not seek to outfit someone from head to toe. But having special items, having special things that you talk about, having attributes of the product that you're proud of, having the intent demonstrated in communication and being plain spoken is today's level of sophistication versus being sophisticated by being removed. So it's slightly different world, and we're living in a world of democratization, where it's really cool to see, for instance, we recently worked with a company called J. Mandel. J. Mandel made furs, $100,000 furs. That world is shrinking, and that fur business is not that relevant. It's also not that cool. But the brand is really relevant in the sense that it's over 100 years old. It has always supported affluent royalty and comes from Russia, St. Petersburg, Paris. So it has this legacy, and the family is still in that business. But what's so interesting is we democratize the business, the brand, so that that brand can be sold to a TJ Maxx, and it's perfectly okay in our mindset, sharing nice things with what used to be levels of distribution. Now those levels of distribution are no longer the holy grail of how you market things. So everything is changing. So it's really key that you develop your own voice and your own way of seeing things. And that's not an easy thing to do, because in the process of being educated, you begin to believe information that you haven't yet realized for yourself is true. So I would recommend you focus on skills, artisanry skills, things that help you really, whether it's illustration, whether it's understanding the practicality of how a product is sewn, really understanding the aspect of making things. Because when you do that, that's a skill that'll be with you, that can be evolved upon. But the marketing aspects of things are ever changing, and it's good to develop your own authentic voice. So in order to find that and not just copy for the sake of copy because you were informed, you have to kind of wait and let it arise for you and be inspired in ways that are authentic to you. I've often say that one of the big problems in this country is education, because you leave high school, you go to college or university, and then you're supposed to know what to do for the rest of your life. And you pick your major, and 10 years later you may say, I never intended that to be, but that's what they told me jobs are. That's where it's supposed. So it's really important to find your calling. Find your calling on what you love. What you love. And in that process that I was describing, how to create a brand or develop a direction, what I said, positioning, strategy, then platform, those are just words. But in that process of discovery, self-discovery is probably the most important thing. Find out what you love to do, what areas of it, Because if you love what you do, then that other people will recognize that. So for new careers, individuals that are looking to express their talents, find the thing that you love to do, then connect with the market, see what's going on in what they would say is the real world that's ever changing, and find the path that really can create an authentic expression for you. And if you have to do something because it's another brand and you are at service to that, be okay on that. Be okay on that, and that requires that neutrality, because it doesn't matter that you may not like it. You may choose things that may not represent you. But if they represent the brand, that's your avatar. In a sense, you are creating something. So when you're neutral, you're able to do that. But if you don't meditate, if you don't stand still, you will always think like, I don't like this, I like this, this is good, this is bad. So continuously you will be judging, and you won't be able to reconcile who you are with what you do. It's a world now where there is many different participants and everything is integrated, and people are spending money on things that'll make their lives better. For instance, home is a new place of business, new place of living. Outdoors is indoors, living off the grid. People are buying old homes, they're remodeling them because they're working. They can live further away. Oh, slippers, inside, outside. That might be a good thing to create, because you don't want to bend down each time to take off your shoes, but you go outside, inside, outdoor living, indoor living. So it could be big picture. All of a sudden you bring it down. Oh, wait a minute, business, going out. Wait a minute, I'm wearing what I work out in to my meetings, and I'm also can go out to dinner in that. That's turning into a lifestyle. Wait a minute, I don't want to think that much because everything I'm getting accustomed to is happening in the moment. So therefore, anything that's difficult may not be as appealing. Wait a minute, is utility a luxury? Because everything that I want now has to function. Well, how do I become special? Well, you can costume yourself because you're not the same person every day. You may decide to go out in the evening and put on a costume because you want to be that person for that evening. So you can be eclectic as an individual and for that evening, for that moment. Oh, is that what you want to do? Well, you can write about that in your communication. I believe that everybody should be diversified, and I love to be different all the time. You can do that. New Balance, you mentioned New Balance. Well, it's American made. What can they do? What can they execute? What is the forefront of how you can run by just stepping into a shoe and let it close by itself? So you can be on the innovative side that couples with styling that is unique, or maybe it's so special that it's so expensive, but it might be worth it. So that creates a new world of customization and limited edition. So really, it's freedom, that we are in a world of immense freedom. If you have the eyes to see and ears to hear the music. So the most important thing is to hear the music, see things, and not be limiting yourself to being exposed to possibilities. And the possibilities are all around us. So, much more can be said about everything. But this is a moment where ideas that meet science and technology, that meet the needs of people, that have solutions to them, that make you smile and not take things so seriously, are the world at large. So the big impacts in today's world are environment, artificial intelligence, blockchain, transparency. Where did this come from? Which farm? Where did this food come from? How is it made? People want to know now. They want to know things that they didn't want to know just a little while ago. Now, everything kind of is up for question. And who do we trust? But the biggest opportunity of all is that big brands don't have an advantage the way they used to. Big companies do not have the advantage because being famous and big doesn't mean that a person buys into that for their own security. So the new emerging brands have an edge because if they have a good idea, good communication, honesty, they can attract simply because people want newness in ways that not newness because it's edgy style necessarily, but newness in terms of the reason why someone's doing what they are doing. Also, limited edition and small runs and small things are the new sort of domain of being special. And large companies are looking to act like small companies, but oftentimes have a difficulty. So their liability is they look corporate. And most corporations are distrusted because they've been selling you things that you don't need. So now marketing is no longer the way it used to be. It almost looks fake. So the consumer, even though they may not even have those words to say that with, they're just not as turned on by it anymore.
Yeah, that's why everybody does collaborations now, because
That's right.
Because in performance sport, the only way that they can move new product and gain attraction and newness is by aligning with a celebrity, an athlete, a cool musician, a designer that's very small but has a little bit of a voice. So what now is happening, I believe, is that a Nike and Adidas has to they're actually serving to the creatives because they need the creatives to boost their business. Without them, they become irrelevant. So they're smart enough to do the collaborations to take young, interesting designers, such as ours, that to give them the edge, and so they're no longer the designers are no longer subservient to the big brands. The brands need the creative designers, which is, it's been going on for a while, but I think it's a fantastic, really, it should be inspiring to the students. It's like your ideas, your innovation, your creativity is a very desirable product in our current marketplace for sport brands. They cannot survive without you.
Oh, that's beautiful, Heather.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And the other opportunity is that large companies and there are exceptions. For instance, Nike is one of those exceptions. They have spirit in their brand because when they speak, they don't speak about the product only. They speak about the reason for their existence, and they just do it.
Mhm.
They are all about motivating you to be the best that you can be. So that's an example of a tried and true brand that is bigger than Exxon Oil now.
Yeah, and I cited them as an example of having done the best job of creating an emotional pulse and the soul of the brand is persistent. So there's they are by far and away product marketing, and they also, it's always personalized. Nike's and the presentation in store. I mean, they don't miss one minuscule aspect of the creativity and marketing, and they align it with the product. So everything dovetails into this beautiful, desirable product. And again, most other brands are, many steps down from them, in my opinion. And, and I think you concur, they're.
The other thing that I would say, I feel like I have the authority to say that simply because of my age, and I've been in this business for a long time. And there's always moments of time where things pivot upon reflection, you know. And I would say that we're in this moment right now of great opportunity. Whenever there is challenges, there is opportunity. And part of the opportunity is that fresh voices that are authentic are appreciated. So for young people, it's important that they're not afraid to find that path that allows you to feel confident in being who you are, not because of what you do, not because of your talent even, but starts with your very being a person, and finding the honesty with which you can speak about things is the number one challenge, not to be a representation of someone you think you should be like. And that's an ageless quest for most people to become comfortable in their own skin. Most people, it happens at maybe mid-30s, sometimes much later than that. But I would say that's the number one thing, to find that consciousness that allows you to be to feel okay with who you are. The second thing is to find things that you actually believe and see and appreciate, not because someone told you to do that, but just in your own self. Be okay on what you like and what you don't like, what you see, what you don't see, and be willing to change your mind rapidly when that no longer is the case, in order to be a fluid person that goes with the flow of who you are as you evolve. So a lot of this is important, because I have found over the years that the deepest concern is, I'll give you an example. Once I was starting up other companies, working, and I got a job offer from Macy's. It was Roger Markfield, the guy that's now retired, that launched American Eagle. He's become a good friend of mine. He knew me, and I went to Macy's, and I knew that I couldn't work there because the pressure that I felt was so immense that I decided the second day that I wasn't meant to do that, and I just didn't do that. So the world out there is such that you got to be strong, and you have to find your inner voice to be who you are, so you can never be robbed of that, even if you end up working in areas and companies and places that do not represent fully who you are. You don't get to do the things that you love, but knowing that difference. And just wanted to touch on that a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. I think you made that point earlier, which I really noted as an important point, is that when you're working and you're starting your career, you often just come into the position and the attitude in your workday of neutrality and being okay with, instead of, I think I could have used that advice when I started my career, is that to be okay if it's not what your personal taste is and what you personally love, because I think in the it can be very frustrating because you're in a meeting, the merchandisers have a preconceived notion, the protection people have their limitations, and so you're sitting at a table where everyone has their own goals to accomplish their job, and oftentimes the merchants have their voice supersedes what the designers are, but you're part of the team and you have to be okay to allow everyone to do their job and to be a collaborative effort. And in the end, you always will learn, and respecting the fact that you always will get an opportunity to speak a bit of you in the design process, even if it gets knocked out, that jacket that you're just madly in love with and obsessed with, because we designers, we get obsessed with one piece in the collection, and that's that is our hero piece, and then that might get knocked out. But the ability to go through and design and have the opportunity to design and process and create something, even if it never got to a prototype, is enough, because as you're developing yourself, and it takes years to really develop who you are and be okay with it, as you said, sometimes 40, sometimes never, but to understand every time you set forth into a design or to creating something, it's all about learning and being a neutral party to a bigger brand, or hopefully we have given you in this course enough tools and enough, there's an innovation capsule that's going to blow everybody's mind, like a single product that changes outerwear. And I think I had other questions, but Simon, you actually answered each question I had, so I don't have really more to say, and you had a beautiful conclusion, very soulful about what to do, what you're conveying to future designers. So I think the self-assessment, check yourself along the way. I think when you start something, you tend to get locked into that idea, that concept. This is my mood board. And I learned really well at G&G, the mood board gets ripped down and changed completely on a daily basis. So where you started, you have everything pinned up, and then you're like, no, we're taking it all down, and to allow yourself to not be fixated on your first concept, and just be okay if a mood board, an idea you had submitted last week changes, it's okay to change, because that shows that you're thinking and you're observing and you're using your discovery mindset to create the best possible outcome. So yeah, it's a great explanation of the creative process, because it can be chaotic, it can be meditative, it can be all that and within the same hour, and every day you go with your gut and you go with that, and you have to be a little bit relaxed to be able to change your thing, because you said, like, you nailed it. I don't want to be wrong. I don't want to tell the team that what I said yesterday is no good, and I change my mind and I'm wrong, because there is an ego. We all put in, we all sometimes set forth our ego before what's best for the product. And so I always iterate, like with teams, is like best for the product, not best for me personally, not best for them personally. Like, let's just, so there is a way you have to set back your ego to be a better designer or a better person. But in general, you just did so beautiful, such a beautiful explanation of all these key points. And so thank you, Simon.
Well, thank you, Heather, for having me. And I want to add one other thing, that a picture is worth 1,000 words, a film is worth 1,000,000. And as you know, because you've worked with us, I always relied on you for knowing that the product is going to turn out great. Because you not only were conceptual and design savvy, you also were savvy to know how it has to be made. And I really appreciated that. But what I was going to say is that now is not the time, but another time I'm also happy to share with you um, creative case studies, anything to help the people, the young people you work with, um, to empower them, to give them a way to um, feel great about where they're going, and who they are. So if you ever want any of that, I'll be happy to present it to you, talk to it, or just send it to you. And I want you to know that.
Yeah, it's great because I am exhibiting 3 different case studies. I mean, and just specifically to performance design and outerwear. But I would love I would love maybe perhaps something we did at the Athlete's Foot or any of the other brands we worked at. Actually, Eco Shirt was a great example because
Well,
we
for
had
instance, we worked with Iron Man.
yeah.
We just we represent Capezio.
Oh, great brand.
Capezio, which is a dance brand, #1 dance brand. You know, Nike was the #1 running brand.
Mm-hmm.
They have never abdicated that role and built upon it. So we thought that Capezio has the credibility to become more than that as the world, and we believe now health, wellness is the #1 opportunity out there, and everything that has to do with nutrition and many other areas. But so that brand had the potential to expand beyond dance into a world at large as a brand that you might want to embrace. So how we did that, I could show you because that's in line with performance and so forth, perhaps even Ironman and other things, and which might be helpful to you. But we leave that for another time. And thank you.
Well, thank you so much. It was such a moving, so many things you said were so moving. And I really appreciate you taking the time this morning
Thank you.
to,
Great to see you.
to take part of this and say hello to everybody. Thank
I
you.
will.
Okay, bye-bye.